العالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله رحمة للعالمين. Tonight's ayah is from Surah Al-Kahf. And the ayah says, وَلَقَدْ صَرَّفْنَا فِي هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ لِلنَّاسِ مِنْ كُلِّ مَثَلٍ وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ أَكْثَرَ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا. We have set forth every type of lesson in this Quran, and mankind is the most argumentative of all beings. Well, the rest of Allah's creation, they don't argue, right? So the comparison here between humans and the rest of the creation, ليس يعني مقارنة الحقيقية, right? So it's just an expression, right? So, because if you think about the rest of Allah's creation, like al-malaika and the animals and so on and so forth, they don't argue, right? Except for the jinn, because the jinn, they're just like human beings. We mentioned a few days ago the example of the animals. When Nuh alayhi salam was building the ark, and he told them to board the ship, no questions asked, they just boarded the ship. As for human beings, well, they had a problem because, they said, well, you lost your mind or what? You're building a ship in the desert? So they drowned at the end and the animals were saved, right? Why? Because human beings like to argue, right? Why this, why that? They just take it for granted and they just don't take the advice of the prophets. If you look at the Quran, there are so many stories that talk about debating and arguing in the Quran. Sometimes in a good way, like in the story of Ibrahim in Surah Al-Baqarah with Namrud, when Ibrahim told Namrud, this tyrant king, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gives life and causes death. So Namrud says, yes, I give life and cause death, and you know the story. Then he told him, Allah is the one who sets his sun in the west, and he raises it from the east. So can you do the opposite? Can you bring the sun out from the west? So he lost the argument. So this is a good argument. Then you have some nonsensical arguments, right? Like in the story of Musa alayhi salam in Surah Al-Baqarah, when he told his people just sacrifice a cow to know who killed the guy. So they said, okay, what color of cow, how big, how small, what is. So they made it difficult for them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it difficult for them, right? We see also in the story of Musa and the Pharaoh, right? In Surah Al-Shu'ara and other places. So Musa alayhi salam came to him with a very simple message. Believe in Allah, let my people go. Khalas. Then he started to say, okay, Musa lost his mind, Musa is crazy, right? What about the previous nations? In Surah Al-Qur'an. Then he started to talk about totally different things, right? That have nothing to do with da'wah, with the message of Musa alayhi salam. He just wanted to change the topic. Then you read the debate of Shaitan with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he told him to make sajda to Adam. A simple order, just make sajda to Adam, khalas. Nothing else. He said, but what is this? I'm better than him. You created me from fire, you created him from mud. Well, this is not the point. The point is just make sajda and leave, khalas. No, he started to debate and argue. So he was cursed till the end of time. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, well, I'm going to give you a chance, he said, well, أَنظِرْنِي إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ, not أَنظِرْنِي إِلَى يَوْمِ يَمُوتُونَ, because Shaitan didn't want to die. So he said, yeah, Allah, keep me alive till the day they are resurrected from the dead, not the day they die and I will die, because he doesn't want to die, right? So he's arguing about this as well. Fast forward to the story of the Prophet ﷺ in the Quran and the people of Mecca, right? He brought in the message. The first thing is, well, you're a poet, you're a liar, you're a madman, and so on and so forth. Well, when they saw people accepting Islam and the Quran made sense to them, they said, well, there's nothing wrong with the Quran, but we wish it was revealed to a rich man from Mecca and Ta'if. Well, what does this have to do with the message anyway? So if the book is good, so what is your problem with the messenger? It doesn't matter if he's rich or poor, right? Then they said, okay, we need a miracle, right? We need the moon to split. Then we need a river to gush forth. We need you to turn the mountains in Mecca into gold. All these things, right? So when the Prophet ﷺ started to give them miracles, they said, you know what? We want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to drop
us and kill us immediately, and if this happens, we will believe. Well, you will be dead then, right? If it comes down from heaven and you die, then what is the point, right? So we see all these arguments all the time. So what is the point is, a lot of us do exactly the same thing. We like to argue. Yes, I'm a Muslim, but I don't pray. Why? Because I don't have time, right? Well, this is your only job on earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you only for this reason, nothing else. If you work, if you study, alhamdulillah, this is extra, but your main job in the world is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, I know that selling haram stuff is haram, but I'm still going to do it. Why? Because, well, I sell it to non-Muslims. This is the most common argument, right? I'm selling it to non-Muslims, so it should be halal, right? And these are the same people who come later to complain that their kids in high school are dating non-Muslim girls, and you ask them, okay, they tell you dating Muslim girls is haram, but dating non-Muslim girls is okay. Why? Because my dad says it's not okay to sell pork to Muslims, but it's okay to sell it to non-Muslims. So this is the whole point. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes something haram, so it's haram whether you do it with a Muslim or a non-Muslim. So there's no point in arguing in this case. We hear a lot, I receive a lot of counseling and stuff. I do counseling, and you sit in front of the husband and the wife, they argue for hours. I didn't do it, he did it, I didn't do it, he did it. And this is why we're not able to solve problems. You see arguments and debates on Facebook, for example. Some guy will post something about one Muslim group and he is cussing and cursing at them, they are kuffar, whatever. Then you see someone from the other group is cussing and cursing at them. And subhanAllah, both of them are using Quran to justify their position and call the other kuffar. Because what happens is, for you to make a good argument, you have to take things out of context from the Quran to justify your point. This has always been the case. Like, the guy, his wife was bugging him. I'll conclude with this inshallah. For a long time, she wanted to do the Hajj, right? And he told her there's no Hajj for women in the Quran. Hajj in the Quran is only for men. She says, where is this? He says, in Surah Al-Hajj, وَأَذِّنْ فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ أَتُوكَ رِجَالًا. He doesn't say men, he says rijala. And he made a mistake actually. The word rijala doesn't mean men in the ayah, it means on foot. Rijal, right? So the point is, there is no point behind arguing, and the Prophet ﷺ says, أنا زعيم بيت برابض الجنة لمن ترك المراء وإن كان محقا. Hadith في Sunan Abi Dawud. The Prophet ﷺ says, I guarantee أنا زعيم, a house or a mansion in Jannah for those who avoid debating and arguing, even if they have the truth on their side. Don't argue, don't debate, unless someone pushes a debate on you, then you have to answer from the Quran or the Sunnah, as long as you are saying the right thing. But to argue and make a point for batil, for nonsense, and for falsehood, this is what is not acceptable in Islam. So the question for last night was, we spoke before about the biggest number in the Quran, and that is 100,000. The question last night was about the smallest number in the Quran. The smallest number in the Quran is not number 1. There's less than this, fractions. So there's 1/4, ruba, 1/6, suts, 1/8, tum. The smallest number in the Quran is ushr, 1/10. وَمَا بَلَغُوا مِعْشَارَ مَا آتَيْنَاهُمْ, 1/8, 1/10 actually. And the winner is Sister Sira Ahmed. Sira Ahmed? Is there anyone to take the prize on her behalf? Sira Ahmed? Okay, so we'll give her the prize after. Tonight's question is easy, inshallah. We know from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, if you read Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad, you get 1/3 of the reward of reading the whole Quran. So Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad equals reading 1/3 of the Quran. Why? Why is that? لماذا سورة الإخلاص تعمل ثلث القرآن? If you know the answer immediately before tomorrow, ask me for